Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spiritual Context for Worldly Chaos, which Jessica has aptly nicknamed Context for Chaos. I think that's perfect. I think they both depict exactly what we're doing here, which is looking deeper into everyday life and asking questions that can help us build bridges between what happens here and the larger karmic cycle or pattern. This is our follow-up interview with Hanna McElroy, and I first interviewed her in 2022 or 2023, and she's now back. So Jessica and I have a whole new conversation with her, and we're really excited to present it to you. If you like keeping up with the sky and you want to know what's going on astrologically each week, make sure to subscribe to my Substack. You can find the link in the description box below. And you will get an email every Sunday called This Week in the Sky, and it'll let you know what's happening that week. This upcoming week will be a full moon in Leo, so that's going to be a very interesting blog. I'm going to be writing it about cringe culture and how we experience feeling embarrassed about our feelings, about our pursuits, about our ups and downs. The full moon in Leo is all about natural authenticity and who you are at your core, what it is that you really want to express to the world, and how you want to be remembered. So sign up to my newsletter if that interests you. And for now, welcome back, Hanna McElroy. Hanna, it has been 2 years since I've spoken with you. How have you been doing in these past 2 years? Is there anything significant that's happened? Anything big you want to tell me about?
Well, it's funny when you ask that, because I think that we're all sort of in survival mode right now. I think in some ways nothing's happened, and in some ways everything's happened to all of us. And, I was thinking about how to respond to that question. I was talking to my friend Holly about it yesterday, and she was like, you just be real. And the reality is that reality is not what it used to be. And that we're all sort of getting through. So in most ways, my life is really similar. I still own these wonderful bookstores in Seattle, which sustain me and my family. And I still read tarot cards, and I love the Enneagram. And one thing that's changed is I've done a lot more travel over the past few years. So I've been traveling to Greece every year as part of an international Enneagram community of the same people. And we get together every summer for a couple of weeks on the island of Paros, and it's quite incredible. We do yoga every day. We spend hours talking about the Enneagram, which finding people who actually think that's fun and want to do that, it's kind of it's a niche. So I've been doing a lot more sort of, I think, figuring out what brings me actual joy, and not waiting around to doing things until, this happens or that happens. Just saying, you know what, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it now and figure out how to make it work. Yeah. So that's what's going on.
That's awesome.
Dogs are a few years older. I'm tending to senior canines now, very senior. And so that takes up a lot of my time. And my younger son moved to Thailand, and he's living there. So that's a whole other aspect of my life that's changing. So there's a lot of personal stuff, and then stuff in my business world and my career world, and then just the whole outer limits of what we as a kind of a global community are experiencing right now. So I think I'm seeing things on lots of different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can I ask why Greece? What's the pull to Greece?
Well, Greece, my friend Lynn Rouleau, who is an American, but who became she is of Greek heritage, and she's actually recently become a citizen. She left her Silicon Valley accounting job about 13 years ago and moved to Greece and started really becoming an entrepreneur, both using the Enneagram, and her niche with the Enneagram is she does it in conjunction with Kundalini yoga. And so she started, I know she's a powerhouse. So she started working with all kinds of people, and then she created a retreat long before I joined. So she's been doing it, I think, for 10 or 12 years, and I've been with her for 4 years. So it's just something that she wanted to do, and she lives in Greece. And so she created this retreat, and I connected with her. Some traditions have these things called panels, where they will try to put together a group of people of the same type. Like we want to talk to a whole bunch of twos, and then you kind of see by listening to people talk about their lives, you see where the similarities are, and it's much better to hear it from people's voices than to necessarily read it in a book. So anyway, I think I was on a panel with her with a bunch of eights, and then after that we just became friends. So it's been a really wonderful way for me to unplug from like the craziness of my everyday life. And I'm just booking. It's not till September, but I'm just thinking about what I'm doing that right now.
I can't imagine the energy of philosophizing in Greece, or of talking about the Enneagram as something that is so contextualized and analytical and connective all at the same time, because that's kind of what the Greeks did with astrology. That's what they did with a lot of their own work, right? So does that resonate at all when you're there?
Yeah, and I mean, I usually go to Athens for a few days before I head out to the island, and it's just different than being in the United States or even being somewhere in Europe or even in Asia, because, I mean, I guess China is different, but you just feel this ancient energy and like literally the birth of democracy. And you go on these tours, and the tour guides have to study for years before they're given, their tour guide stamp. And they're all like incredibly educated, smart people. And you just feel like you are at the base of something really special. And just viewing the Acropolis and viewing the ruins and just viewing things that are so incredibly old and have been maintained and respected and honored. Yeah, there's an energy field to Greece yeah, for sure.
I mean, I could only imagine. I haven't been there yet, operative word yet, because that is on my list of places to go.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious, since you have a group of people who love to talk about the Enneagram, which is my secret wish among tarot astrology. Like, I just don't have yet a community of people that I can talk to on the same level all of the time with.
Yeah.
But what new information are you communicating? Or are you communicating just what, like, these findings of these panels? Or how do you all form new conversations around the Enneagram over weeks?
It's interesting because there are always new people who come in and, other people who don't return. So there's always like a newness to the group and a base to the group. And so a lot of it is just reintroducing the basic concepts that we are all aware of, and then experiencing it with a new group, with new people, with new experiences, and also experiences being brought by the same people who've learned new things. So there is this sort of educational, analytical aspect to it, but then on a really deep level, I think what makes it special is that it's like deeply personal and spiritual. And then we're all practicing yoga together, also twice a day. So there's this whole yoga aspect, and eating, really good. The food is incredible, and the ocean. And so it is a retreat. It is very much like we're doing thinking stuff and talking stuff, but then there's also 6 hours a day where you're just like relaxing on the beach and unplugging from this chaotic world. Yeah. And speaking of tarot, I was just going to say, in tarot communities, I do have a really beautiful tarot community that I'm part of that I can share with you later. Do you know Jessica Dore? Are you familiar with her work?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so she does incredible stuff. She does these like Sunday tarot meetings. She does classes. She's an incredible person. She's a friend of mine, and she does these series of Sunday meetings every Sunday with a group of people that you would just love because they're so fucking smart, and thinking and she's so smart. So I think you would really love it. Did you have a question, Jessica?
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Hi. I was curious if you touched on earlier how the world is so different. There's so much stress, so much chaos, like just so much tension in our daily lives currently. Do you still get new information from these retreats that you feel help you infuse your community when you come back to your daily life?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always learning new things. It isn't as if though it's like, oh, well, I learned fact, 247 this time, but it's more like there's this like transmittal of energy that then sort of reinvigorates my,
Right.
I don't know, like my soul. And then I'm able to jump back in with kind of a fresh eyes and a fresh face and just a fresh way of looking at things. I learn stuff all the time. I mean, and one of my big values is that my curiosity, and I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm always like, if I'm not learning new things, then I'm dead, so that's sort of how I function anyway in the world. But so I feel like there's stuff that I'm definitely a book learner, but then there's also this stuff that just gets, I don't know, transmitted somehow that then
Downloads or something. Yeah.
it becomes part of like your bloodstream.
I guess I meant more specifically like with Enneagram. Like, you've learned so much about yourself and like your operating systems. Are you still finding there's more to uncover with your own Enneagram type?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, with my own Enneagram type for sure. At least the way that I view the Enneagram, for people who are conscious and aware and want to evolve and develop, and who actually believe that it isn't necessarily linear, but people who are on a path of some sort. So the Enneagram provides a framework and a structure for that. And so I think that I'm always discovering either new ways that I'm seeing or new ways that I see. This last year that I went, actually, was it last year? It was either last year or the year before. As I said, there are new people who come into the group. And, as with any group, there are like 15 to 20 of us. And with any group, and you're going to be together for a week or 10 days, there are dynamics that happen. And so it's also, as people who are intuitives or empathetic or whatever, you kind of like are like, what is it about that person? There's something about that person. Either there's just something not right, or there's something that's rubbing me the wrong way. Or so when things like that happen, where I'm like, there's something about her that's just not right, or that I'm not connecting with, it's very good for me to then sit back and say, what is that saying about me? Because I may pick up on all kinds of true stuff about her. She may be a massive pain, and she may really rub everybody the wrong way. She may be annoying. And part of being an 8 is that I'm a protector. So if somebody's like bad for the group, I'm the one who's going to like go get him and take care of him. But then it's like I need to like sit back and I need to say, so Hannah, you're an 8. You tend to go off. You tend to want to protect everybody from, the evil in the universe. So what can I do to bring myself to a higher place and not react in a way that is not really in my best interest?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you think that being a more learned person on the Enneagram or on your own personality in this way, do you think that this is more about integrity for you at this point? That it's about living in a way that is best expressed to other people, like you're putting your best out into the world and you are trying to be as conscious as you can about your impact on the world as this 8?
Yeah, because I do think that, because that is one of the that's one of the pitfalls or opportunities of the 8, is that they can sometimes be like a bull in a china shop, or unaware of their impact on other people. And again, I think we talked a couple of years ago about how when you first take the Enneagram test or have a typing interview, you're really supposed to think about what you were like as a teenager, like before you had all the therapy and the consciousness raising and all that. What were your like, your gut reactions to things? And that is sort of your baseline. And then it's really thinking about how can I just kind of move up to different levels. And we can call it integrity, we can call it maturity, we can call it evolution, we can call it consciousness. There's so many different ways you can approach it, and there are no real rules. But I mean, it's sort of like growing up, like actually growing up versus, just aging.
Yeah. So a person who's first coming into the Enneagram, if this is where they could get to, is where you are, where you're now have accepted your shortcomings and your and the things that are better about you or good about you, not good or bad, but that you want to give out into the world. How does somebody that approach the Enneagram who might be more sensitive to the conversation of the things about them that may not be in their best interest or that don't give the people around them what they wish they could give them? How does that go? How do they feel,
Points of friction.
Yeah.
I think that what it really comes down to is compassion. And I think that is the thing that the Enneagram teaches more than anything else, is that when we learn about different types of people and we learn about which types we might rail against a little bit more, which ones we might be attracted to a little bit more, people who might just be having a shitty day. I mean, you can, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm evolved now. We run the gamut of up and down. All of us do every single day. And being able to actually approach ourselves and other people with compassion, I think that's one of the biggest gifts of the Enneagram, because it basically recognizes that, not everybody is motivated by the same things. Not everybody comes into this world looking at life in the same way. And we have similarities and we have differences, but we all have the ability to, approach each other with compassion. And so to me, anyway, that's one of the biggest gifts that it's given me.
There was something that you talked about in your first interview, the wings. Is that what Vanessa just kind of touched on, like the growth and the stress wings?
Oh, well, those are two different things. So yeah, but that's good that you brought those both up.
Because it's like what she said of not good or bad. You're always in alignment with something that's coming from like your own energetic. So if you're like moving for growth or if you're moving from stress, like where you are, this core or this baseline, and then like moving in different directions based on like your energetics, right? Like,
so they're arrows. Your energetics or how your day's going, or what interaction you just had on the phone, or it's a lot of it is, I mean, so again, with a type 8, when I'm operating from my, best place, I lean into the 2, which is the giver. And of course, the giver is, as a type 2, also has a high and a low. Like the giver in his or her best place is somebody who is able to give without worrying what they're getting back or without being manipulative. So it's like kind of the highest sense of the 2. At times of stress, the 8 can go to the 5, which is just like, I'm going to isolate myself. I'm going to prove that person wrong. I'm going to go get every single piece of information I need to get. And I'm going to, create my manifesto so it's a very sort of like going to the data and shying away from vulnerability, because the vulnerability is the thing that 8s usually have the hardest time expressing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It would be good to do you. It would be good to do you.
Oh, what's funny is that I'm a 4, which you guys giggled about because you skipped it.
If you would have just said, what do you think I am, like in the first 10 seconds, I think I would have said a 4. Just how you reacted when you couldn't think of what your question was. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Trying to pull the threads together in real time is scary.
Oh, go into that.
Yeah, I mean, I got the sense that you're somebody who feels very deeply, can worry about it, like being misinterpreted, thinks about things very deeply and is often unsure and wants to learn more. I don't know how artistic you are. I don't know if you come from an artistic sensibility or not, in some way or another, music, art, that kind of a thing. But definitely somebody who wears their emotions on their sleeve. Definitely somebody whose emotions are almost defining for them, for good or for worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A quick synopsis. Yes, you are correct. I feel underdeveloped in my artistic sensibilities. That is sort of my operating system, is like through that spatial sensitivity, through that like discerning eye. I forget I'm the logician. Like I'm always thinking my feelings before feeling my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys, when you touched on the 4 in the last interview, I already knew I was a 4, but I hadn't really looked into it. And then I had no idea what these wings were. And so looking into the 4 connects to a 1 and a 2, right?
Well, the wings are different.
Okay.
So the wings are the numbers that are on either side of you. So it would be for you, it would be either the 3 or the 5.
Oh, yeah.
And then the arrows are the stressors or the opportunities.
Those are the growth lines?
Yeah, the growth or the growth or the stress. Yeah.
Right. So the lines connect to 1 and 2. My wings are 5 and 3?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You're spot on with that.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea is that nobody's ever going to reach this, or I don't know. I don't know of anybody who's ever reached this, but the whole idea is that ultimately we can encompass and develop all 9 types within us. Like if there were to be a nirvana, like that would be it.
Multitudes.
Exactly. So, and I think it's only a concept. So then the idea is that the other numbers that are closest to you are those 4 additional numbers. And then the rest of the numbers are going to be ones that evolve in different ways.
No, and that sounds like a lotus, right?
Yeah.
Like the opening of a lotus.
Yeah.
And that's the nirvana symbol.
Right.
So let me talk just for a second about why I'm redoing a lot of this and why I'm excited to redo a lot of this. Because I had the opportunity to talk to 16 people who look at spirituality in different ways. It was more concentrated on tarot, but you all have different modalities that you connect to that give you a sense of direction or a sense of stability, a sense of integrity, a sense of an idea of something larger that you can believe in. And I think that now, especially in America, when a lot of people I think a lot of people are turning back to Christianity, but there's still a large amount of people that are trying to find something that makes them feel like they can handle the vicissitudes of life, that they can handle the ups and downs, or at least accept their way of experiencing those ups and downs. One of my best friends, Monica, she hates how empathetic and sensitive she is, but it's also, in our eyes, her superpower and something that she has to learn to work with. So when we have these different modalities, Enneagram being one of them, and you mentioned in the last episode that there's a magic quality about it too, which a lot of people kind of are feeling a need for, is not just logic, but also something that feels more magical. If that's the nirvana, if that's where we can get to, which to me is, let's say, if somebody wants to walk a massively spiritual path, because even if you look at something like Buddhism, you don't have to become a Buddhist monk to get into meditation, so you don't have to hit some conception of this larger idea of the Enneagram in order to pursue or understand or connect to the Enneagram. But if we're starting with the Enneagram, or if that's what calls to you, and what is that spiritual connection that you feel somebody can, or if you could let somebody know about before they even walk in with you, because you talked about it being about your childhood the last time we talked. I imagine it's mainly about understanding your personality and working with your personality. But if you could tell somebody, listen, if you like the Enneagram, this is kind of a directive or a path or a way.
Yeah. So I think that if somebody had an interest in the Enneagram, even if they were just like, what is this? I think that the first thing to do would be to figure out what type you are and to really dig into that, because we don't want to go around typing other people. Because if you think about how we know what our type is, knowing what your type is comes from deep in here. It comes from your core motivations, your core fears. And, me, yes, I just was like, yeah, I thought you might be a 4. And sometimes we do that where, especially in the Enneagram groups. But in general, you're not supposed to be like, oh, he's a 3 or he's an 8, 9, because it kind of cheapens it. And then it also isn't really addressing the fact that it is an internal thing. So the first thing I would say is figure out who you are, what you are, and, read a bunch. Like I love, there's so many good books out there. There are, I don't know, less erudite providers out there, but they're mostly really, really strong people writing good books and good podcasts and all of that. And you take what works for you and you leave the rest. Like you really don't have to, adhere to a tract to be interested in the Enneagram. And then it's thinking about your own type and then finding maybe a couple of other people who are interested in it too. And finding other people, friends maybe, who would like to find out about their type and then getting into conversation. And it's about communication. And I think it's about community. And then again, I think it's about compassion. So I don't think Enneagram really can live in a solo bubble. I mean, you could just sit here by yourself and just be like, I'm an 8, I'm an 8, I'm an 8. But it really is about how you interact with the world. And I consider myself a spiritual person, but only insofar as I interact with other people, and how I interact with other people really is my spirituality, or is how I have my spirituality on the ground is how am I, helping other people? How am I counseling other people? How am I showing up when I need to in the best way that I can? And that to me, especially in the situation we are here in the United States today, is the best way I know to do that. In addition, the other thing I was going to say is that nervous system management is so important right now. And so creating structure and discipline for oneself, carving out that own private meditation time, that tapping, whatever it is that we need to do. I take 3 hours every single morning where I'm not interacting with anybody or anything other than myself and my meditation and my books and my Hobonichi planner. And I'm just in my 3 hours of my own space. And that is how I ground myself. And that's the grounding. We can be up here in awareness and consciousness, but we can only do that if we're really solidly grounded. To me, that's the best way that we can, provide for other people.
That's a beautiful concept. Imagine being alone with your thoughts for 3 hours every morning. But everything that you're saying, Hannah, everything that you're saying reminds me of this quote that I've been sitting with. I started reading Albert C. Whitmont, his Return of the Goddess. And I've been sitting with this quote from an early chapter, and it's the integrity of an individual life, no less than of the collective life, that is culture, depends upon the myths. Their archetypal themes give form and meaning. Falling out of meaning, out of touch with archetypal structuring, means disintegration. I feel like this renaissance that we're having of these sort of not generalization, but gaining creating accessibility with these sort of woo-woo, like you said, woo-woo modalities. It feels really important right now I feel as a group conscious, we're coming back together under duress as a global society. And it feels like there's this sort of coming together, but it's through the parts of everyone having compassion for themselves and for others, and understanding who they are, what they have to bring into the space. And it all just has me thinking about archetype.
Yes. And, that is something that all the modalities have in common. The Enneagram provides 9 archetypes. They're not, we can call them personality types, but they are archetypes. The 22 major arcana, those are archetypes. The 12 zodiac symbols are archetypes. And this is something I feel like humans, and I mean, Joseph Campbell would agree, obviously, but I feel like humans need these common symbols, these common myths, these common ways of seeing the world that tie us all together. And it's multicultural. I mean, it isn't, we often talk about, these Western symbols, but in every culture has them, and they can all be tied together. Thinking before I came on that I have, really embraced my crone the past couple of years. I'm just, it used to be feeling like, oh my God, I'm getting old. And now I'm like, I'm so glad I'm getting older, because that idea of being an elder, of being a woman who's an elder, and I love playing that role now. I'm very comfortable in the role. And yeah, and that's another archetype, you know.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you said that we need archetypes, but I'm even going to take it one step further and say it's just innate. When we don't have it, it's almost like, what happens when people don't sleep for a long time, that they've actually found that people pass away because you have, your body absolutely has to dream. I think it's that level of infusion. I think that sometimes because we're in the furthest of technology that any of us know about, keep on going and we'll see what happens. But we have this impression that we can pick and choose certain things about ourselves. We have this impression that we can just hypnotize ourselves or put on masks, which is a part of the archetype, is like, okay, we can switch things easily, but it actually lives inside of us. And I'm writing an article, it's about the moon and about our emotions, right? It's an archetype of our emotions. It's an archetype of our habits. It's an archetype of humanity in general, how we nurture ourselves, how we self-regulate, what happens to us when we don't self-regulate, or if we don't know how. The moon is Earth because it was formed by a planet called Theia smashing into the Earth, and the shrapnel of the Earth coalesced into the moon. And so it's literally us, and just as much as I can't remember what happened to me when I was 6 months old, 1 year old, 2 years old, kind of feels that way about these billions of years of evolution that have happened to make us possible. Because without the moon, we wouldn't have formed oceans. Without the moon, the gravitational pull wouldn't have evened out the ecosystem. Nothing would have lived. Nothing. So you had the sun that was warming it, the earth that was holding it, but the moon is pulling on it. So there is a primordial sense of it. Like if the mother is the ocean, the moon is the crone of all of it, the eldest of all of it. And then on top of that, it's the only satellite that circles us. It's the only thing that circles us. So it's the only thing that has had complete vision of every portion of our past, every portion of our greatest moments and our worst moments, our achievements and our failures, So it's not just a need, it's what drives us. And I think we take that for granted a lot.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Correction, we have 2 moons until 2038.
That's true.
We do?
Well, it's it's something that's being pulled into our gravitational. But before that, billions of years ago, there was one. And that's what created life. That's what made it possible for life on Earth. Earth would have been here regardless, but we would not be here if the gravitational pull of the moon had not shaped our oceans. And also, you think about the Farmer's Almanac and how they name all of the moons, right? So the full moons. I don't know if it's about it going from a new moon to a full moon as much as it's about how close the moon is to the Earth. But you have to time it. That's why there's a lot of cultures that are still on the lunar calendar, because everybody's culture is agricultural. And so when the moon's gravity, when it gets close to us, it actually pulls all the moisture from below to the surface of the soil. So that's how you know when to plant. And that's when you have the best potential for crops to grow. So even today, we use the moon and we need the moon, and it's an absolute essential to any survival here whatsoever. So I think things like the Enneagram are, what's that saying, that the universe is consciousness getting to know itself kind of thing. And we are continuously trying to see ourselves in these different lights that make sense to us, just as much as somebody doing Myers-Briggs or astrology or tarot. It's how you see it and how it kind of works with the archetypes that already live in your mind. And like you said, building up these other archetypes that may be, like Jessica said, feeling underdeveloped in a way.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a really great way of looking at it. I'm thinking of you as a five. I assume you still identify as a five. And it's that, like your go-to is I can just be by myself with my books in the corner and I'll be great. And I don't really have to go out. But I think you even said in our last interview, you were like, when I go out and I'm able to actually share myself with other people and have a good time, like what you're able to share out there in the universe versus staying in your own little hidey hole is like that's your gift, and that's how you can give to others. And so it's like kind of pushing yourself beyond like just the strictures of what your base type is, this type that we're just like born with, our DNA. And it's also fascinating. And all that moon talk also got me so thinking about how many people don't actually even think that the moon has any impact on us whatsoever. They just think the moon's up there. The moon's, yeah. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Those people don't think much. I mean, they don't reflect on things much.
Well, exactly. And so all of this is also hoping that people will just think a little bit more and just reflect a little bit more and not be in this numbed out daze of scrolling. And as much as I hated Zoom during the pandemic, it's like Zoom has actually become such a good friend to me because I know people all over the world now. And it's like so cool. I can just like log on. And it's like, to me, it's like just open my awareness so much, which I know also has probably led me to want to travel a lot. Yeah. So
Are there possibly types that might be more prone or have an affinity towards not, quote, thinking that much about these types of things, or might not be curious about archetypes or their roles, like this sort of internal, external synthesis? Do you think there are types that have an affinity for that, like lack of curiosity, or, is that just, would it be more of a cultural sort of suppression?
I think that my short answer is no.
Cool.
Every type has the ability to be a deep conscious thinker. However, type sevens definitely want to live in the present, don't want to think about the future, don't want to dwell on the past, which we could argue that being present is the most conscious thing of all, but they also have a tendency to not want to reflect on anything negative. So the type 7 really wants to just focus on the cup is half full. So you can make an argument that they might not be that prone to wanting to think the deep, heavy thoughts that can sometimes be horrible. The type 9 also, who doesn't like conflict and would rather everything like go with the flow, but again, if they get pushed too hard, explode. So the type 9 and the type 7, if we were to make that kind of argument. But again, every type has the ability to be, a block of wood, and every type has the ability to be deep. But again, you're talking about just like an inkling. Like I would say the 9s and the 7s would have an easier time playing nice.
I feel like the 5s are the conspiracy theorists. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones who like keep digging up the information, but it's like biased information constantly,
Yeah.
That could be that block of wood kind of experience. I mean, meaning like if I was to go with my own type, like, yeah.
Right.
I feel like I've tried to date a type 7 before and was like, ugh, why won't you think? Why are you not like chewing the bone?
Yeah. Why don't you feel my suffering? Yes, exactly. I mean, a 4 and a 7 together is, it's quite a something, because a 4, is all about suffering in some ways and gets their superpower from their suffering. And a 7 is the life of the party. And the 7 is, my younger son is a 7, and it's just like, don't worry, Mom. It's cool. Everything's good. All's good. And it's like, no, actually, you're putting your head in the sand. Not everything is good, damn it. But that's his mode. That's his comfort zone, is to just operate that way. Yeah, good question.
Scare off some astrology people here. But thank you for saying that, because that's what'll happen when people do the whole, oh, well, I dated a Virgo. Well, are you a Sagittarius? that would be a squaring sign to Virgo. You know, you might not have had a great time with, I mean, if you want to talk about it like really astrologically instead of judgmentally. And it's that, like you said, that compassion for the fact that we're all on a journey. And also it's the compassion for the fact that some people are really good at certain relationships and other people aren't great at other relationships. And, you know, like some people are really great friends while they're not really great spouses or family members or stuff like that. So I think it's really important that when we are talking about these kind of modalities, that we keep it to that or to recognizing that there's a relationship happening. It's not a person in the static, in like the ether. And like I can get into that. Everyone can, like, because we want to diagnose each other so that we understand how to work better with that person.
Yes.
The fact that I'm a Libra, I will probably lie to you more often to be honest with you, because it's easier for me to keep the peace or to expect that you know better than me than it is to put my own needs and my own thoughts forward, even though I'm an Aries moon. Eventually I will.
Yeah.
But like initially, I can look at it like, why don't you ask me more questions? Or why can't you see through me? Why don't you understand me better? When really it might be also the reflection of the fact that I'm here to have relationships that I'm more honest about, and that my integrity is about saying what's on my mind.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. What sun sign are you, Jessica?
I'm an Aquarius.
Aquarius. So you've got a birthday coming up.
I do. It's 6 days from today.
Wow, an Aquarius 4. Here's me typing you. Oh my God, an Aquarius 4, no.
I mean, but yes.
Yes.
It's true. I'm a Aquarius, Sun, Leo, Moon, Gemini rising, type 4. It's a problem. I'm a problem. I'm my own problem.
I'm a Leo, Sun, Capricorn, Moon, and Scorpio rising.
Beautiful.
You said in our last interview that you were starting to get into astrology. Did you find anything about yourself in your big three since then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still such a generalist, and I've had a few astrological readings, and I've, got books and apps, and I do quite a bit of reading, but I still feel like the astrological system is so intensely large and complicated. And so I know I'm in, but I do think that it's going to take years and years and years for me to feel like I really know what I'm speaking about. I have a friend who's a Vedic astrologist, and so this is blowing my mind because it's so different. And he's doing a whole reading for me, and he's got a video, and he talked to his teacher, and it's just a completely different thing because the sky doesn't move.
I don't know Vedic astrology at all. I only know Hellenistic astrology.
I know, and I don't either. But when he told me that, I'm like, well, then it's all totally different. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it has completely different end goals as well. Like it tells you about more materialistic goals, ambitions, what you're gonna be. At least that's how I've experienced it. I'm scared to go to a Vedic astrologer because they're so like, it's just, you will experience these 4 ups and downs. Like, it's just so like intense.
Well, I'm kind of excited because I will say that I'm taking it slightly with a grain of salt. He really wanted a tarot reading. And so I said, of course, I'll give you a tarot reading. And if you want to do a trade, that's great. And so that's what we're doing. But like I said, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm curious. If there's something I don't know much about, I'm always open to learning something new. And so this again is just, I'll see what happens. And that's part of my 7 wing is like, sure. Like, give it a shot. What could go wrong? That's very much where I lean into.
So actually, you just made me think of something. When you were like a wing and you said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go this way. Do you think the wings are kind of like a devil and an angel they can be, or they can be something that's more conscious when you finally get used to them of like, oh, I see what's pulling me in either direction? Is that like kind of a visual that some people can wrap their head around?
The way I see it is it kind of gives more flavor to your type. So where I might say I'm a Leo sun, well, that's great. I'm a Leo sun. But then when you hear that my moon is in Capricorn, then, well, you as an astrologer are probably like, oh, okay, well, that flavors that differently. And then she has a rising sign in Scorpio. Well, that it's sort of like fleshing out the whole picture. So I think the wings, I've had a lot of people say to me, God, like you really are like a 7. So I lean very heavily into that wing. It's just a way of making it even more personalized. And we probably don't have time. We won't have time to get into it in this interview, but there's this whole body of knowledge about subtypes. So every type has a subtype, and you're either a self-preservation, a sexual, or a social. So Beatrice Chestnut, who I think I talked to you about in the last interview, basically there are actually 27 types. So I'm a social 8. Now, if you are a social 8 who also leans heavily on a 7 wing, multiply that out, and you end up in almost the same situation. How many tarot spreads can there be? Or how many possible charts could there be with the number of places people are born and the times that they're born and the variety. So to me, it makes things much more interesting and much more real, because it's a lot different than like a Myers-Briggs where you're spitting out you're an E. I don't even know what they are, ENJF or whatever they are, but it's like, wow, you're so much more than just that one type. You have a way, your subtypes really talk about how you interact with the universe. And I'll just briefly spit them out. So a self-preservation type is somebody who is, as you walk into a party, is the first thing you notice, where's the bathroom? What's the food like? Is there going to be food for me? Is it too hot in here? What is the environment? Like, how am I going to be in this space? That's a self-preservation. The sexual type, and sexual really means one-on-one. It doesn't mean sex. We'll walk into the party and look around and be like, where is my person? Where's my person? Oh God, there's my person. Okay, good. So now I'm okay because I know I've got my person that I can talk to and who I'll be like with this evening. The social person walks into the room and is like, oh, all my people, this is awesome. I know that person, and I'm just going to go mingle and, feeling very like happy to be in a space like that. So that's kind of how the subtypes work. And you may identify with one or the other. And that's just a real simplification, but it's a good way of sort of saying, oh, that's kind of where I land.
That's awesome. I don't even know if we could do an episode on that, because that needs to be a course. Like that needs to be, I would watch that as like to understand it, because it's so interesting how many of these modalities we only kind of hear the surface of, and even the surface itself is so like complex and interesting. But it's true, like when you look at astrology, I look at zodiac as an element and a modality more so than a personality. That personality is probably the last thing I talk about, because that's not really what.
So is that like the sextiles and the squares and that stuff?
Well, so the element and the modality are about aspects. So they tell me more so what's impacting that planet than necessarily how that planet is operating as a personality, because that's a floating personality. It's not really connected to anything else.
Okay. That's you say that's the level of my expertise right there. That's it.
Yeah, I hit that plateau a long time ago. That definitely is a plateau. So you're in a good place.
I'll be there for a while.
So Hanna, can you tell me, if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to improve, or I want to feel more authentic, or I want to feel like myself, I want to get to the bottom of some tensions or trauma or pains. And we were just talking, and I was like, let me ask my friend Hanna if the Enneagram is right for you. How would you tell me to let my friend know that this is what the Enneagram could give them?
I think that if they're interested in learning about themselves, and they're interested in learning about themselves in some sort of community with others, I think that it is extremely useful. This is a great example of where tarot comes in, because I think that an Enneagram-informed tarot reading can be, or even an Enneagram-informed astrological reading, which I've had, can be really, really useful because you learn about the person's type, about their motivators, their fears, um, their kind of operating instructions. And from that, when you layer on like a tarot reading or an astrology reading, then it almost like kind of meets them where they're at, and you can take off from there, either talking about what's really bugging them right now. I will say that some of the most beautiful tarot readings, I give tarot readings at this retreat in Greece, is these really tuned in people who are tuned into their Enneagram type and thinking about how they're operating in the world. And I mean, we end up in tears like so often because it just, you lay out a spread and you talk about the spread and what it's speaking to you, and how it relates to how you know that person then as a 5 or as a 4, or as a 9. And it just like cracks open real emotional blocks. So that's one of the reasons that I just love the modalities together. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. I just any answer from you is a good answer. I just wanted to know from an Enneagram expert or from someone who just spends so much time with a personality test like this, or like with a personality
System.
So yeah, system and event.
Yeah, I call myself an enthusiast because I'm not a big believer in like certifications and I've gone to school and I have this stamp, and I'm sort of an outlier in that respect, is that I don't really care.
You're sort of I go to Greece every year to talk about it for 3 weeks and do yoga. That's a really high level person. Okay, I am going to give that to you.
Yeah, or, I meet with a group of like-minded tarot people, or to me, that's what's important. Again, it's the community, it's the communication, it's the interaction. It isn't whether I have like a little stamp or a little like letters after my name that say that some foundation or, says that I'm okay. So that again is, I'm a little bit of a rebel in that way.
Absolutely.
You too, I bet.
Yeah. It's hard for me too. I am getting my certification in astrology though. It is. Oh yeah. It's going to take. Well, it's not going to take me forever. It is, because I have a 45-hour a week job. So yes, it is going to take me forever. But it is still my pursuit. Thank you. And you're talking to us right now from Seattle, right?
I am from Seattle, Washington.
Amazing. How's the weather?
It's actually sunny. It's not like 60 degrees, and it's not supposed to rain for 10 days. So all the things they say, it's a lie.
It's a lie. I'm in Oregon and it's sunny and warm today.
Oh, are you in Portland?
Just east in Hood River.
Okay. Oh, nice.
All right. Well, Hanna, I'm going to round this out with saying it was amazing to talk to you. And I hope that we talk again soon, even just one-on-one, because you're always a font of knowledge. So it's always wonderful to speak to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great to have you email me, and it was great to meet you too, Jessica.
Nice to meet you, Hanna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week when we talk to Siddharth Ramakrishnan about the neurology of intuition. And as always, as above, so below, blessed be.